Call the member for Moreton.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on this matter of public importance. From my background as a union organiser, looking after limited hours daycare centres, and also as a parent with two kids who have gone through childcare, 3 days, one still there 3 days a week, and also living across the road from a childcare centre. So let's get I could focus on that horrific road accident called ABC that happened under the watch of those opposite, but instead I'll just touch briefly on Labor's record before moving on to the real issues that have been touched on tangentially by those opposite, but not in no great detail. Let's have a look at some facts. Record funding under Labor for early childhood education and care. Increased the childcare rebate from 30% to 50%. We improved the affordability of care, resulting in a 30% increase in the number of children in care, now over 1 million. I know occasional care has been an issue, but those opposite forgot to mention the fact that there's now been a 30% increase. Out-of-pocket expenses, let's look at back in 2004 under the Liberals, it was 8.4% of your disposable income. Under Labor in 2012, it was 30% under the Liberals, down to 8.4% under Labor in 2012. And most importantly, we delivered that $300 million boost to wages, because as touched on by the member for Bendigo in her speech, the reality is, the horrific fact is 180 educators per week are leaving this sector. 180 educators per week. Now, if anyone that has kids in care, and it was touched on by the member for Corangamoi, you trust your children will be looked after by these educators. We know it's not a childcare service. We trust that they'll be looked after by these educators. They are our most precious burden. They are our hope-distilled children. So to hand them over to strangers, you need to rely on a quality framework to make sure that they're trained up and that there are checks and balances. And then you need to make sure that they'll be there in the long haul, because as anyone knows, if your child, be they 15 months, 3 years, 4 years, if they change teachers, if they change carers, if they change educators, it can be quite traumatic for a child in care. All of a sudden, when you drop them off, it's a much more traumatic event, because they're not being given a warm, helping, familiar hand. Instead, it's the hand of a stranger. So what's the best thing we can do for childcare? We can invest in quality training and the remuneration. I have horrific stories that I heard during the Big Steps campaign organised by the United Voice union. The reality of people having to take another job on the weekend just to be able to consider the possibility of getting a housing loan. People working 5 days a week, ridiculous hours. I work across the road from a childcare centre. I know that they're there from 6 to 6. And I know that horrific rush as a member of parliament trying to get there before 6 o'clock. But I tell you what, I would not begrudge paying an extra $1 if it went to the pockets of a childcare worker. I know the member opposite talked about the inconvenience of being there after 6. Well, you think of what it's like to have a job where you cannot afford to get a loan to buy a house, where you have to get a second job when you're a professional educator with quality standards, where you have to pay for your own professional development, and you do not have enough money to get you cannot be considered for a loan, consigned to a lifetime of being a renter. Imagine that. That's the Walmart theory of Labor. That's not the Labor Party's vision of Labor in Australia, and it hasn't been the vision of capital in Australia in terms of approaching Labor since the Harvester decision back in the early 1900s. Surely the people that look after our most valuable commodity, our future, our children, those people that we are designing a planet for the future, they are worthy of some extra remuneration. And those opposite that have backgrounds in childcare centres, either as taking profit from owning them, or from having kids working in there, or from having spouses that own them, surely they would understand that we should, wherever possible, invest in their remuneration. That is the best use of government dollars when it comes to the childcare sector. Now, this review that those are trumpeting, waving around like Chamberlain getting off an aeroplane, I know what review means if you have not committed to any more money for childcare. If you're going to throw money to nannies and au pairs and the like, well, that's fine, but it has to be new money. Don't steal from those that are already suffering in